is it. This is Persia. This is the ancient and authentic and historical Kingdom of Persia, the Achaemenid Empire. This is it here. This is how it looks. This is its location. And this is its topology. This is the Persia of history. This is the real one. Located in Botswana. In Botswana, South Africa. This is it here. Now, one interesting thing about Persia is that Persia, the first thing is Persia is black. And this is a black kingdom. It has always been black and always will be black. And Persia is one of these nations, it's one of these kingdoms that has been stolen, copied, forged, and hijacked to Southwest Asia, to the locations of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and others. The people in those locations in Southwest Asia, they are cave people, and they have been classified as non-human. And those are the people that are laying claim, laying stake to Persia as their history. And two of such cave people are the Beradosians and Zarzians. These are the ones who are Iranians, Afghans, Iraqis, Saudi Arabians, Turkmenistan, and the rest. They are descendants of the Beradosians, the Zarzians, and there are many more beings in those locations. These people, these cave people who are classified as non-human, who are covered up with words as Neanderthal and Denisovan, it is these people and their descendants. They're the ones that have did their best, and they still do and try to this day to make Persia their history. You see, they have to hide their origin, their true origin, as the descendants of the Watchers. They have to keep that hidden. And the way they are doing it is by stealing black history, the black history of the black Persians. But this is Persia here, the actual, real, historical, ancient, and authentic Persia, the Black Kingdom. This is it here, located in Botswana, South Africa. And Persia, one of the things that has been kept hidden about Persia is this name right here, India. India. This is the real India, Persia. The India that we have been told for many years, the India that is located in Southeast Asia, the India that is located near China, Taiwan, and the like, that India, that is not the real India. That India was only recognized as India in 1947. You see, that particular India that we have been lied to about, the United States in August 15, 1947, This is when Harry S. Truman, he was president. And during his administration, the United States recognized the so-called India as an independent country, and the name ascribed to that now independent country was India. It was given the name India in 1947. Now, prior to 1947, it was not called India. The name of this country that is now called India, prior to it being recognized by the United States in 1947 as an independent country, that territory, that land in Southeast Asia, that was called Bharata, spelled Bharata, Bharata. But that's not the real India. That is not the historical India. This is the historical ancient India, Persia. And the reason it is called India, the reason Persia is called India, is due to the type of topology that it had, the way it was set up. Now, we get this information in the Apocrypha, but also, not just the Apocrypha only, it is mentioned in the Old Testament, in Esther. But the majority of the information is in the Apocrypha. And when we go over it, look at the verses on India, we will see the reason why these books have been removed. You see, the Apocrypha has a lot of valuable information, a lot of revealing information that will reveal the truth of why things are the way they are today. And this is one of those truths. This is one of those revelations. The truth of India. The Bharata is not India. This is India. Persia is India. And the verses in the Apocrypha on this information is in 1 Ezra chapter 3 verse 2. And we also find it in the additions to Esther in chapter 13 verse 1, and also in the addition to Esther in chapter 16 verse 1. And we find this information in 1 Maccabees chapter 8 verse 8. Now in 1 Ezra chapter 3 verse 2, it reads, "And to all the governors and captains and lieutenants that were under him, from India to Ethiopia, of 127 provinces." That's in 1 Ezra. In the additions to Esther chapter 13 verse 1, it reads, "The copy of the letters was this: The great king Artaxerxes write these things to the princes and governors that are under him from India to Ethiopia, in 127 provinces." And in additions to Esther chapter 16 verse 1, it basically says the same thing. "The great king Artaxerxes unto the princes and governors of 127 provinces, from India to Ethiopia, and to all our faithful subjects." In 1 Maccabees chapter 8 verse 8, it reads, and the country of India, and Media, and Lydia, and of the goodliest countries, which they took of him, and gave to King Eumenes. So with these verses, and in First Maccabees, it'd be better to read that from verse 6 to verse 8. There's a little more information to it. So First Maccabees, chapter 8, verses 6 to 8, it reads, they also had defeated, and the they is referring to the Romans. So they also had defeated Antiochus the Great, king of Asia, who went to fight against them with 120 elephants, and with cavalry and chariots, and a very large army. He was crushed by them. And in verse 7, they took him alive and decreed that he and those who were reign after him should pay a heavy tribute and give hostages, surrender some of their best provinces to them. And in verse 8, and the Romans, they wanted these particular countries. In verse 8, it says, the Romans, they wanted the countries of India, Media, and Lydia. And those three countries is what the Romans considered the best countries that Persia had. And so they took from him those countries and gave to King Eumenes. With the Hebrew word for India is H-O-D-U. That's the Hebrew word for India. Hodu. Let me bring this up here. Now the word Persia, that word was never used by the so-called Persians. They never identified themselves by that term. And the original black Jews, they never used that word either, as well as the surrounding nations, the other black kingdoms. They never used the word Persia, neither did the Romans. Persia is an English word that comes from the Latin of the same spelling, and the Latin comes from the Greek. Now the Greek word for Persia is Persis, spelled P-E-R-S-I-S. But the English word Persia, and that this includes the Latin as well and the Greek. These words come from the Hebrew word Parsa. This is Persia. Persia comes from the Hebrew Parsa, spelled P-A-R-S-A, and sometimes it has an H at the end. This is the Hebrew word Parsa. This English, Latin, and Greek word comes from the Hebrew Parsa. But Parsa was never used in reference to the historical country that we call Persia. Parsa is a unit of measurement of weight and length. This is the meaning of parsa, and that is the usage of parsa, measuring length and weight. And this word parsa, it does appear in scripture, and it appears in scripture in the context of measurement of a unit in weight. So this is where the word Persia, this is where it comes from. This is its origin. You see, there's a play on words because there's a thief involved, and the thief is using wordplay to hide and conceal the theft and thievery that has been done. So the Hebrews and the Persians themselves, once again, they never use this word Persia. The Hebrew word for Persia is this. The Hebrew, they identified the country that we call Persia. They used the word India. This is the word that is scriptural. It is found in Esther, in the book of Esther, and it is found in the Apocrypha, in Ezra, and additions to Esther, and in the first Maccabees. This is the word that the Hebrews use, India. Now the Hebrew word for India is Hodu, spelled Hodu, Hodu. This is the term, the word that was written and spoken by the Persians and the Hebrews, and these surrounding nations. They had their word similar to the Hebrew as well. But Hodu is the term that we find in scripture, and Hodu is Hebrew, and it means this. It means India. Now the Persians, they are descendants of Elam, and Elam is a son of Shem. Now what is important about that is that Shem spoke Ivri. That means his sons, his children, they spoke Ivri. It further means that the descendants of Elam, they spoke Ivri. And so the Elamites, they went into two locations. They went into Namibia, near Syria, and they established territory there. And many of them went east into Botswana. And this is where we find the Persian Empire. It was established by the descendants of Elam. And another thing that is significant about the descendants of Elam that we call Persians, they spoke Ivri. They spoke Ivri. The Hebrews spoke Ivri, Shem spoke Ivri, all of their descendants spoke Ivri. And the Hebrews and the Elamites are cousins. They're related. They're related, and they spoke the same language. And now with the internal evidence for all of this is found in scripture, in the Bible and in the Apocrypha. And that internal evidence consists of the conversations that went on between both parties, between the Persians and the Hebrews. When we look at the scriptures, well, the conversations between both parties were being done. One thing that we notice is that neither party needed an interpreter. There was no interpreter involved, and there was no difficulty in understanding the language of each other. That is important, and it let us know that both parties, the Persians and the Hebrews, they spoke the same language, and that language is Ivri, commonly called Hebrew. Now the meaning of Hodu is this. Clear this out of the way. And this is Hodu. This is Hodu, every word for India. And the meaning of Hodu is this. Well, let me say this first, is that, again, the Persians and Hebrews spoke Ivri. Now the so-called Persians, the Elamites when they say hoodoo, they spell it and pronounce it somewhat similar but yet different. The word they use, which is the same meaning of hoodoo, same as the Hebrews, but they spell it, and this is going to be interesting, they spell it, instead of hoodoo, they spell it Hindu. And everyone is familiar with Hindu and Hinduism. You see, this is Ivry and this is Ivry. Both of these are not Persian, but Hebrew. This is Hebrew. And this is similar to an example of this here is like the English language. English is spoken in Great Britain and it is spoken in America. But even though it is the same language, there are a lot of similarities, but yet there are a lot of differences. Differences on pronunciation and nuances and the like. Well, that is the same way this Hebrew is. The Hebrews who descended from Shem, which is the Elamites, and the Ivry people themselves are all descendants of Shem. And they spoke Ivry, but yet the Elamites, they spoke Ivry but had their different ways of spelling and pronouncing the same words that the Hebrews did. But we do see the similarity. And so there's similarity with a little bit of differences. So the Hebrews say hoodoo, the Elamites, who we call Persians, they say Hindu. And now the meaning of both, then we're going to take the Hebrew. The meaning of hoodoo is this. In every letters for hoodoo is going to be the H and D. HD. And the meaning for the letter H is the Hebrew het. Now the meaning of the letter H, het, and het is spelled H-E-T, and sometimes it's spelled with two H's, H-H-E-T. And the meaning of het means a tent. It means a tent that has a division, a wall. That wall is going to represent a line that goes right in the middle. This circle here, this is the tent, and this line, this is the wall, the division. And what this is with the Hebrews, the tent that they constructed, there was a division, a wall there, and that wall divided the men quarters from the women quarters. And the man quarters, it was always put in front where the entrance is, and the women quarters were put in the back for protection. But this is the pictograph. This is the meaning of het, a tent that is divided. That's het. Now the D is going to be the Hebrew word delet, or the letter delet. And so every letter delet, that's going to be this here. This is the D, and that's going to be every letter delet, spelled D-A-L-E-T. And delet, that means a door. That's the pictograph of a door. And it means to move and to hang. move and hang, where something is hinged. This is the delete. There is an attachment. This is the hanging part. There's a movement, and there's the door. The door represents an opening. Now, when we put these two letters together, the H and the D, when the H and the D is put together, that is going to give us the meaning of a dwelling place that is going to represent a kingdom where there are people that dwell and live in this kingdom. This kingdom is divided. That's why the head with the line in the middle of the tent is divided. And with the delete, the opening is going to represent the division with a hinge, a connectedness. And so that means a kingdom that is divided but yet connected. That is the meaning of Hodu, a divided and connected kingdom. So that's the meaning of a Hodu, a divided and connected kingdom. And the historical Persian kingdom was just that. It was divided into 20 provinces. And each province was ran and controlled by a governor. The Persians, they did not have a government that had only one central and localized body or building or location. Their kingdom was set up like a mesh. Their kingdom was set up like a mesh that consisted of 20 provinces. And that is similar to the United States with 50 states, but one country. And so that is the setup, that was the topology of the Persian Empire. It was set up in a topology of a mesh that consisted of 20 provinces ran by 20 governors, and all provinces were connected to each other. So that was the Persian Empire, and that division of connectedness is what the Hebrews call Hodu, and the Elamites, who we call Persian, they use the same term with a different spelling and a different pronunciation. They call it Hindu. Hindu means divided connectedness. A divided connectedness. That's Hindu, and the Hebrew is Hodu. But now with this divided connectedness, we still have to answer and explain, where does India come from? If the Hebrews been using the word Hodu, then where did India come from? If they never used the word India, where did it come from? Why is it here? Who coined it? Who brought this into existence? Who brought this into usage? Because India and Persia, both terms are not historical. You do not find Persia and India in history. Both terms are modern, from the 18th and 19th centuries. And when we look at India, we find something interesting. You see, the land mass in Southeast Asia that we call India, which is not its real name, but that land mass, the original name of the land, the country that we call India, its original name is Bharata, and that is spelled Bharata. Bharata. This is the original name of the land that we call India. This was its original name, Bharata. But something happened. Something changed it from Bharata to India. And that something that caused that change was the United States. You see, the United States in 1947, August 15, 1947, the president at the time was Harry S. Truman. And during his administration, the United States recognized Botswana as an independent country. And the United States changed the name from Botswana to India. Now this gives us evidence that the United States, along with the people of India, and along with all other countries outside of Africa, this is evidence that these people, they know who they are. They know their origin. They know where they come from. They know that their origin is from the Watchers, the fallen angels. And we know this by the way they behave. They behave in secrecy, and in theft, and in lies. And for the U.S. to use the word India, that further indicates that they know about Hoodoo. They know about the Ifrit, because it is the United States, along with Great Britain, the Vatican, Germany, and other countries and interest groups, along with Botswana, they are involved on the cover-up and the theft of all black people in Africa, including the original black Jews and the Elamites. They have stolen their history. And so with this change from Botswana to India, this is stolen history. Stolen history of the people that is given the name Persians, but they really are Elamites. And so the theft of these people, along with the name change, that is all information, and they let us know that they know who they are, and it is necessary for them to steal the identity and the history, along with many other things, to cover up their origin and history as being from the Watchers, the fallen angels. But this is the India. Persia was called India. It's really called Hoodoo in Hebrew. But Hoodoo is given the place name India in the text, in the Bible, and in the Apocrypha. But the original writings of the Bible and Apocrypha has Hoodoo, not India. So the word Persia comes from Parsa, and Persia was made out of thin air. Persia comes from Parsa, spelled P-A-R-S-A, and sometimes there's an H. And the people involved on the theft, they changed up the letters in the word Parsa, and out of thin air made Persia, and they applied it to the Elamites. And for a further deception, they made up this word India. India, just like Persia, is made out of thin air. This is not historical. It was never used by anyone in history. The words that are historical that was used is Hoodoo by the Hebrews, and the Elamites identify themselves, their country, as Hindu. These are historical terms. These are the right terms and usage that identify the people, the land, and the country that we call Persia. that is also called India. These two terms, made out of thin air, are actually the real terms here: Hodu and Hindu.